During the Second World War, we were asked to make various products. One of the ones that we finished up making was what they call instrument screwdrivers. And this is a set of instrument screwdrivers which we made in our factory. We don't make them anymore, but these were made of a brass extrusion and rotating top, and we put them in these rather nice Bakelite carrying cases or in a plastic wallet. We made sizes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sizes to fit delicate screws in watches and jewellery and what have you. And there's a pretty small one there. The grinding of them became a problem, which we overcame. But we made hundreds and hundreds of thousands of them. I've been collecting tools for a while, and I came across this one. Now this is a Swiss one, which looks not unlike these, but believe it or not, it's got a gearbox on it. Because if you put your finger on there, you can see how many times that goes round when you rotate it. It's amazing, very clever. This is another curiosity, which is called a bell center punch. Now you can see that inside this cone there is a punch. And if you wanted to find the center of the piece of steel bar for a reason, so you can maybe put it in a lathe or whatever, you would put this over the bar and then just hit that so that it made a center pot mark. And we used to make those as well. I think they're very nice. And they come up on the internet and people wonder what they're for. This is a tool which was used on lead pipe work, which is called a pipe opener. And they very often get misnamed, and people think they're for drilling holes in the side of, say, a barrel for a bung. And well, that's not true at all. This is for opening up a hole in the side of a lead pipe. You can see there's a screw nose and then 2 cutting edges. Actually not made by us, but we bought and sold these, and our friend's Footprint in Sheffield used to do the drop forgings and finish them off and then sell them to us, and then we mark them with monument. It's a lead pipe opener. For more lead pipe stuff, this is a product called a Burlock, B-U-R-L-O-C tool. And this is an early one, and we didn't make this one. This was made by the firm that we bought the idea from back in the 1930s, and it's used for holding a brass union inside a lead pipe while you are wiping a joint. The idea was that this popped out and jammed it into the lead pipe. We bought the idea, and then this was the second development of it. This is 1930. That's probably a little bit later. And then these we made from the late 30s onwards. And this is the more modern version of it. And you can see as you screw this down, these pieces open out to jam it inside the lead pipe, while the union is held here. And then you wipe the joint roughly here. And there's a smaller one there for say 1/2 inch. In the days when lead pipes actually carried potable water, of course you're not allowed to do that anymore. You're only allowed to use lead on waste pipes. We talked earlier about Ministry of Supply, and this is another product that we made for the Ministry of Supply. In fact, this one is marked with one of our other trademarks, Sheetac, and it's dated 1946. And it's got a broad arrow on it, meaning it was made for the defence industry. And we tendered for them and got the business. Toolmakers clamps, they're called. They will be familiar to people in the engineering industry. But just to show you that we made rather more than just plumbing tools in the 1930s and 40s and early 50s. And then we decided to stop doing that and concentrate on making and designing plumbing tools. This is a clamp for holding 2 pieces of steel together while you're, say, drilling a hole in it or whatever. It's a bit like a G clamp, but slightly different. Called a toolmaker's clamp. It looks like an ordinary hammer, but actually it's a straight pane hammer means the pane is that way. A cross pane hammer where this pane is that way is called a Warrington hammer or a carpenter's hammer. And then of course the ones with balls on this end are called ball pane hammers, which are used by engineers. But this straight pane hammer or plumber's hammer was unique to the plumbing industry. It was used for manipulating sheet lead or lead pipe and generally being used by a plumber about his daily work. When you go up in the loft of your house, you'll probably find a cold water tank. If you're on mains water supply, you probably don't have one of those. Certainly in my house, I used to have a cold water tank, but I now run everything off the main, so my tank has been scrapped. But what you needed to do was to drill holes in it. Before the advent of the modern hole saw, you used a product called a tank cutter. These are not all tank cutters. This is a tank cutter, that's a tank cutter. We'll come on to these in a second. Monument Tools were not obsessed, but had difficulty in deciding where to go to make a successful tank cutter, and this was one attempt, which is a sort of curious. It's got a little tool bit there with a twist drill, and then you could adjust the diameter that you wanted to cut by moving this arm backwards and forwards and locking it down with this nut. Then this became the style, and that continued to be the style, whereas this was another attempt, if you like, a bit like that, to make yet another way of making a hole in a tank, and the same with that. That's got a little tool bit in there, and that slides along there. This double bar makes it stiffer, and the idea of this shank here was that you could put it in a brace. And that one's got a straight shank on it for putting in an electric drill. Eventually we came to this, which is similar to that one, where we've got a nice brace shank and a different design of cutter similar to that. And this was the design we finished up with, but now this has gone out of style. This is going out pretty rapidly, so we've got just a few left if you want one. Then we come over here, and these are not tank cutters at all. They're washer cutters for cutting washers out of, say, leather. This one here is particularly big, and these are all for cutting washers. This nice little brass item is what they call a spirit blow lamp. Inside here you would put a wick, which was made of a white sort of cotton material, and then you pour methylated spirit in there, and then put the top back on. Then you'd set light to it, and it would burn with a modest flame. But then what you'd do is adjust that up to wherever you wanted, and then blow through this to blow the flame sideways onto the work that you were doing. It was used by jewelers and people like that for very fine work. And a lot of these appear on the internet, and people ask what they were for. They were made actually by a firm in Birmingham called Alfred Shirley and Sons, and there are several brands around. There's Monument, there's Moore and Wright, and there's Aberco, but I think they all came from the same factory in the Midlands, and they're very nice little things. This item here is what they call a hand vise. And it was designed by Southeastern Gas, I think, or North Thames Gas maybe. And we got the contract to make these for one particular distributor. And it's used for holding gas pipe while you're threading it. This is a rubber insert. It's quite an interesting little tool. It's really pretty over-engineered, particularly when you could have done more or less the same thing using this, which was a bit crude, but nevertheless it had rubber inserts in it for holding tubing, and which we had designed and made, so for holding brass or copper tube. These are called plumber's wiping cloths. Now we've been making, or we had made, plumber's wiping cloths since the early 1930s, or even before that actually, when my great uncle listed them in his catalogue. And these are made out of what they call moleskin. Now don't take that literally, it's not captured moles and skinned. It's actually a cotton cloth which is impregnated with a clay filling, and it's got a nap to it, a bit like the nap on a piece of cloth on a snooker table. So you had to make sure that when you cut it and sewed it together, that the nap was in the correct position for dragging the bulbous lead pipe that you soldered lead pipe together with. So it drags it round and made you a nice bulbous shape. There were little tiny ones, 2 inch by 1.5 inch in its wrapper, and then 2.5 by 1.5, and then 3 by 2, and then 3.5, 2.5, and 4 by 3, and 4.5 by 3.5, and 5 by 4. Wiping cloths, not used at all anymore. There's not much you can actually learn really from old stuff, because it's all been superseded by far more modern designs. But having said that, occasionally you see something, oh gosh, that would be interesting to see if we can develop that into a new product. But the occurrences of that are pretty rare in actual fact. Sometimes it pays to keep things. One instance where somebody claimed that they had invented a new product. A certain museum up in the Midlands had to go through their stock and their catalogues and were able to prove to the alleged infringer that the product had been made before and had been discontinued, a good number of years ago. The complainant lost his case. But we don't do that for that reason. We do it, we keep these things for posterity chiefly, and also for fun.